Hey everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. Today we have a great episode lined up for you today. We're sitting down with Greg Carrasco, host of the Greg Carrasco Show, only on TSN 1050. Before we get started, don't forget to like and subscribe to our podcast and YouTube channel. If you're looking for all the greatest new episodes, breakdowns, plus a lot of free content, go ahead and subscribe. You're not going to want to miss this. Now I got a question to ask you. Do you ever shave your balls and it ends up being as bloody as a Nate Diaz fight? Well, the good news is today's episode is sponsored by the official electric trimmer of the UFC, Manscaped, and they just released their 4th generation performance package. Fellas, now you can get your black belt in ball trimming and join 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by going to the manscaped.com and use the code CHPodcast and you're going to get 20% off. That's right, 20% off. The performance packages here completely upgrade your male hygiene routine. Inside, you'll find the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, the Weed Whacker ear and nose trimmer, the Crop Preserver ball deodorant, Crop Reviver toner, and plus 2 free gifts from Manscaped, the Performance Boxer Briefs, and the Shed Travel Bag. You can't go wrong, and it's free shipping. Then one thing you want to make sure too, if you're trying to make yourself look good, you never want to end up in a bloody mess. So that 4th generation trimmer is going to feature a cutting edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents and thanks to their advanced skin safe technology. So like I said, get 20% off free shipping with the code CHPodcast at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with the code CHPodcast at manscaped.com. Time to knock out your pubes with Manscaped. Your balls and your sparring partners they are going to thank you. Lastly, we are sponsored by Spirit Leaf Waterdown, located at 64 Hamilton Street North in Waterdown, Ontario. If you're looking for Canada's top cannabis brand, look no further than Alex and his crew, and they're going to be able to help you out with all your THC and TBD products. So, if cannabis is your thing, you got no better place to go. Just head on over to Spirit Leaf Waterdown, tell them that you watched the podcast, they're going to set you up for a discount, and you can't lose. You're going to meet a great staff and get more knowledgeable in all your product needs. Thanks everybody for watching. Enjoy the show.
Oh, I'm going to do an amazing podcast, and now he's thinking we're a bunch of fucking amateurs. Oh my God.
Who are these rookies? Aaron, what are you doing over there? Stuck in your library?
I am in my library, and here we are. But everybody, thank you again for joining us here on the Choking Hazard podcast. We have a great episode with you today. We have the great one and only Greg Carrasco of the Carrasco Show from 1050, 1050, The Fan.
Yes,
Greg,
TSN 1050.
There we go.
TSN 1050.
Fan, whatever. Thanks, buddy, so much for joining us on the podcast today. How are things going?
You know, I'm actually super excited about this. Normally I'm the one that's doing the interviewing. So when the message popped up on my DM, it was not a booty shot. It was just actually someone that wanted to actually talk to me. So this is new. But thank you so much for the invite, man. I really appreciate it.
No, absolutely. Because I think it's kind of funny because I've listened to your show for years, and I can't honestly say I've been a huge heard you for 12 years the entire time, but obviously I tune into you every Saturday morning when I happen to be driving. And the funny thing was, we started training together at Evo, and I'm like, oh, this is a great guy, Greg. I had no idea it was you. And that was the funny thing. And it's I've talked to you about your motorcycle, I've talked to you about your cars, and we've had conversations, but I never put it together that you were the Greg Carrasco of the Carrasco Show. It was
this whole time.
You know, it's interesting because I'm a very private person, and the show, and believe it or not, the radio show, but the TV show was what made it really awkward sometimes. You're walking downtown Oakville and people just stopping you, wanting to take pictures, and I'm thinking, oh my God, what's happening here? It's just weird. I'm not worthy of this. So I value that privacy, and sometimes just people pick it up. I mean, they hear my voice and say, are you Greg? And a bunch of people have come up from the club now, and but it's super flattering, and I'm super excited to be training with you guys. The club is super cool. So
Aaron, unfortunately, was one of those people who did not recognize your your sweet, sexy voice on the beaches on the beaches in the Bahamas where you're filming us live. For those who are watching us right now,
he's too busy
YouTube.
trying to choke me. That's the problem.
Hey man, I gotta protect myself. That's it. So, like, how did the whole evolution of like, TV, radio, and then obviously radio, and then because like you hear the evolution of obviously like podcasts and all these other different formats that are happening, but like you've had a show that's been going on for almost 12 to 13 years now, and you've been able to stay consistent with it. Like, how did you like first kind of start into that radio business, but how have you been able to keep it still going? And as you were kind of saying, it was like you're the only non-sports show on TSN 1050, which is amazing.
Well, a lot of it was just circumstantial. I started, like I was mentioning to you guys before the break, when I finished working with the Canadian Army in the early 90s, I could barely speak English. And I started to sell cars at 401 Dixon Nissan. This was a long time ago. And I did really well in sales. And then, one thing led to another, and I got into management. I was doing advertising on AM 640 at the time. This was before Global bought the entire thing. And they needed a car person to give some opinions on something that was happening in the car industry. I don't remember. It was a long time ago. And so I acted as a guest. I went there for a guest interview, 10, 15 minutes or so. It ended up turning into 1 hour. And they thought it was funny. I mean, that's what it came down to. They thought it was funny. And they asked me to come back. So I started to go back at 640. And believe it or not, it was, I don't know if the name Mike Stafford rings a bell, but Mike Stafford is a bit of a legend in the city. And, at one point he was a pretty good friend of mine, and it was on his show that I went. But then I started to get phone calls, and they wanted me to do this on a regular basis. So what started as a 1 hour a month, it was an expert hour, and it all started as an automotive show. Then, I did something different because we were taking phone calls, and, everyone has got a car in their lives. You drive a car, you've seen a car, there's a car in your driveway, you see them in the highway. So there's always something to talk about when it comes to cars, but I'm not much of a car person. So I was trying to essentially give people advice that made sense, because I'm not a car person, like, I don't care. But I was trying to teach people how not to waste money. And that kind of resonated. So it went from an hour a week, an hour a month, to an hour a week, to 2 hours a week, then to 3 hours a week. And now we are on every single week, 3 hours, Saturday mornings on TSN 1050, from 8 to 11. But, media has changed everything, right? Mm-hmm. I was a very early adopter of social media, and I remember, getting my Twitter account verified back in 2011. Twitter is not even a thing anymore, but I stopped tweeting like 7 years ago. No, I'm not joking, man. I don't use it. I don't use it. Twitter account.
I think Aaron's still using it right now to
only to bash certain people, but that's it.
Only to troll certain individuals who have very large teeth that try to chew through fences, right, Aaron?
Yeah.
When I became pretty good friends with Dean Blundell on 102.1 The Edge, and we started to build that Twitter account. Mm-hmm. And because everything was transitioning into the digital world, I think that was a natural progression of what I was doing. So slowly but surely, I opened up a YouTube account, started to tweet, and it just exploded. I mean, it was back in 2011 or 2012 or so that it achieved critical mass. And then it went from an unknown thing to, 70 or 80,000 followers on the Twitter account. Now it's almost 100,000 people on Instagram or something crazy. And the podcast, believe it or not, is one of the most downloaded digital properties that we have in TSN across the country. And the show has evolved. I mean, like I said to you, a couple of times now, I'm not much of a car person. My passions are other things like philosophy and literature, and especially politics. So this is like right in my alleyway, what's happening in the country right now. So it seems like, me gliding through my life, trying to figure shit out, has resonated with a lot of people. And, there was a group of people that listened to the show, and I called them Slacker Nation, and they wear the t-shirts. I'm not joking, man. This is messed up. when I tell my mom about this, she doesn't believe me. She lives in Chile, right? So she's like, yeah, shut up. Yeah, right.
She's like, sure, Greg. You think you're popular.
I have 100,000 people on Instagram. I'm kind of a big deal, Mom. Yeah.
What is Instagram? She says, right? But no, that's what's been the progression, and I think that by and large, the fact that I'm quite open about my life. I mean, on Saturday mornings, it's a bit of a 3-hour soliloquy on what's going on in my week, and I think that has been resonating with people for a few years now. As guys, we have a tremendous amount of social pressure for you to know shit. You're supposed to know things and be tough and have all the answers. And fuck, man, I don't. Every day I'm just terrified. Like, what the hell what am I going to find today out in the world? And I try to bring that to the audience on Saturdays, and I take phone calls, and I don't turn anybody. The crazier, the better. So there's been a lot of crazy over the years, man. A lot of crazies, man.
Yeah. So obviously you were kind of saying like you've been able to keep this show going, and like what have you kind of like, what do you feel like the progression is like moving forward, but whether it being through radio, or do you feel it's like more of that podcast, or do you think like things like radio are never really going to go away? Because I've always started to hear more advertisements, especially going through radio, especially because people do a lot more driving. And then obviously podcasts is one of those things that people don't want to listen to the radio anymore. They're kind of switching to the podcast world instead. So do you feel it's kind of like radio is going to always be there, or is it just kind of like morph into something different?
I think Aaron's trying to ask, is radio dead?
No, I don't think it is, because I enjoy radio.
I don't think so either. No,
I don't think it is. So long as cars come with radio, and so long as people don't want to pay for things, radio is always going to be a thing. And but in all fairness, I mean, radio is a very few last captive audiences that you have. Like, you can't fast forward commercials. So if you like the content that is being provided for you by the DJ or the talk show host in the morning, you're going to stay there just as the price you pay to listen to these people.
Yeah.
And I think it ultimately comes down to this. For a very long time, I'm not a broadcaster, right? I'm just
a guy, yeah. No,
I'm just a regular dude that did well in an industry, and success or fame was never something that I pursued per se. I never wanted to have this big platform. I just wanted to become really good at something. And I mean, there is certainly no pun intended in this when I tell you that cars have been the vehicle that I've used just to communicate ideas. And I think that the progression has to happen with only one caveat. Content is king. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter where you are. If your content is compelling, if it's funny shit, if it's interesting, if it's thought-provoking, if it's crazy, it doesn't matter. If you're really good at something, people will find you. And what I have found is that the more I try to find notoriety, the less notoriety I found. So I think that everything started to grow for me when I stopped giving a fuck.
You can say that.
Oh, yeah, you can say whatever you want.
Yeah, I said it.
You can say whatever the fuck you want on here.
I think that things really changed for me when I stopped caring. I like, if I have an opinion, just say it. There are some people that are going to be upset about it, but you will be surprised how many people share what you say aggressively. And those are the ones that become your base. And once your base grows, they talk to people. And those people will talk to people. And I know it's a long and arduous process. But I can tell you, you cannot fake hard work, because a lot of people just want to explode all at once. It doesn't happen that way, man. What you see today is overnight success that took almost 30 years to make, and I'm not saying it's going to take you 30 years because, you guys are, good looking and interesting and something that I'm not. My face.
Are you talking to me? I know you're definitely not talking to Aaron. He's not talking about me either.
But, I think that, as trite and trivial and maybe basic as this may sound, if you can dig in and just found that inner you, just let it fucking come out, man. Let it come out. Let it rip. Who cares? And I think that more people that understand that you are being real. There's a lot of fake talking heads, and there's a lot of fake voices in the morning that are paid to be funny. No, man, I'm not paid to be funny. I'm not paid to be anything. And the only thing that I can be really good at is me. So if this is the product, let people have it. And you'd be surprised how many people are going to eat that shit up, because people are starving for some genuine exchange, genuine humanity, especially in social media now. Nobody has a bad day on social media these days.
Oh, exactly right. And it's what you said, where it's like people are always, you said content is king, and like people are always starving for new content, something to get them going, or especially a new audience base or whatever, right? So it's all about being authentic, but also kind of creating something original as well.
Yeah, I think originality, if you are yourself, Aaron, you can't help but being original.
Yeah.
Who Oscar Wilde says that don't just be yourself, everybody else is taken. So I think that once that comes through and people latch onto this, I think that success is inevitable. It'll happen no matter what. Now, as per the way communications are going, it's pretty scary what's happening out there now because of how fragmented the systems are. You have YouTube, you have TikTok, you have Instagram, Twitter, you have the podcast system. Then you have, if you're not in all those platforms, people will miss you, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's also important to focus, because anybody can do anything really, but nobody can do everything. So it's important to just concentrate your efforts onto one thing that becomes your thing. And from that, I think that slowly but surely you can absorb and grow. But I mean, everybody's road to success is so different. How long have you guys been doing this?
We've been doing this for about a little over a year.
A year and a half.
Since lockdown number one, we've been, hey, Aaron just called me up one day. Hey, so remember that podcast thing we've always been talking about that we wanted to do one of these days? Yeah, well, we got plenty of time, so why don't we start something?
I was listening to one of your podcasts last night, because this all happened all of a sudden, right? And so I was listening to one of your stuff last night, and that's some funny shit that you guys talk about, man. I actually, I started to listen to it, and
really. So what? So which part?
You were talking yesterday about the concentration camps that everybody's going to be locked up, and
It's coming.
Hey, listen, don't joke about that, man. It's pretty scary stuff that's going on out there.
I will put a feeler out right now, regardless of how if we agree on things politically or what's going on. If anybody gets locked up, you know where to find me. I will be the first person to bust you out.
Listen, I moved up to the country. I have a full arsenal in my house, so when the zombies come, there is at any given point there is about 10,000
full arsenal. I've seen that Scotch earlier. That's a full arsenal right there.
Oh no, the affinity for firearms is something that I never lost after the army. So I've kept up my membership at the local gun club here. I go to Target Sports in Stouffville. They're unbelievable guys. So I'm fully licensed, and I can actually bring people and train them how to use weapons. It's one of those things that just becomes part of your life.
Well, yeah, especially coming from the army, and again, even like guys that we know who are in law enforcement, especially from the club or even like these guys have trained. They need to keep that training up, or they just want to keep that skill going, because it's like anything. If you don't do it, you lose that skill, right? And it's the skill you want to keep, 100%. And like I remember when I went to, this is years ago, I went to Vegas, and I went to the gun store, right? Mm-hmm. Me and my wife go to the gun store, which was an awesome experience. And we 9 a.m. shooting, which was awesome. And it was like my wife shooting an AR-15 and a Glock, and I got the M16, a Beretta, and
Sorry, I'm just picturing your wife shooting.
Oh yeah, the pink AR-15. It was hilarious, right? But we're doing it for sport, just for fun. But when those things are done safely, it's awesome. These are things that people should have access to and be able to. I'm not advocating for everybody to go out and buy an AR-15 right now, but
I think
like
you are, Aaron.
safely.
I think you are. It sounds a whole lot of fun.
I can't buy it here anyways, but like to do it safely and have that skill set, why not, right? Like this, everybody wants to learn something nowadays, and if that's something you can learn, go for it.
Well, I think that a lot of the fear and the fear mongering that happens in the media is backed up by ignorance. I can tell you that a lot of the accidents that happen with firearms is because of lack of education.
Yeah.
Like, for example, I train my kids so they know how to use and behave safely around weapons. It's the same thing with my niece. She's only 11 years old. I would much rather them know how to handle. It's like driving a stick. You never know when you're going to come across a car that has manual transmission, and it's a life skill. So if you know the very basic safety procedures that you need to have whenever you are presented with a firearm, assume that every gun is loaded 100% of the time. If you don't assume that, you're going to get yourself into trouble. So I think that responsible gun ownership is something that we don't talk a lot, here in Canada. And perhaps we should, because immediately people assume that if somebody likes guns, that there's some crazy gun-toting Americans. It's like, yeah, no man,
guns, freedom, America,
bald eagles. It's different. I mean, it's a different country, right? But Canadian gun laws are so strict that the first offense is 5 years in jail. 5 years in jail. So no. So this is something that we take very, very, very seriously up here in Canada.
Mm-hmm. No, and like you said, it's responsible gun ownership. Like that's the key word, right? And like that should be an education tool, like so everybody has. Again, it's all about education and building off that. But let me ask you this: how did you get morphed into jiu-jitsu? Like, how did the whole jiu-jitsu transformation happen with yourself?
Well, in order for me to tell you how that happened, I'm going to have to share a little bit more of my personal story with you. That
perfect.
Is stuff. I was born. My sister and I were born in Chile. We were born in the ghetto in Santiago, and we didn't have parents, so we somewhat grew up in the system on the streets, and it was dangerous. When I was getting beat up left, right, and center. I mean, we lived in gang country, and it was scary. I was about 9 or so when one of my uncles decided that I should probably take some karate lessons from somebody that he knew. So it was just typical third world country nonsense. You go to some dude's house that knows a couple of moves here and there. He's watched a couple of Bruce Lee movies, and they teach you how to use nunchucks that you make out of cut up broomsticks with with a rope. And if you haven't seen my nunchuck skills, I promise you they are something else. They're on Instagram.
Okay, I'll take a look.
Black belt nunchuck skills. Check it out.
So I started to take Shotokan when I was about 9, and I pursued that for 7 or 8 years. And in Chile, it's not like here. You stay on white belt for like 2 or 3 years. So if in order for you to get from white to to black belt, it's a good 10 to 12 years, even in Chile. This is back in the 70s. But I was always fighting. It was a thing that I did. I'm not a big guy, but I was always scrapping ever since I was in elementary school. And when I first moved to Canada, I was a young, I came to Canada when I wasn't 18 years old yet. I came on my own. I couldn't speak English. I didn't know anything. I mean, I didn't have any schooling. And in the day, I would work at a factory, and at nighttime, I would work as a bouncer in some Spanish nightclubs. So I continued to fight. That's all I did. I joined a karate school in the early 90s, and I competed in Southern Ontario in stand-up, it was semi-contact at the time.
Okay.
You can make contact, but not full contact. For that, we would go to Northern New York State. I did that a couple of tournaments, and this is before the UFC. But then, I got an office job. So I became a gym rat, but I have always had that fighting thing in me. A few years later, I bought a CrossFit gym. I became a CrossFit competitor. I competed in my age group anyways. And I own a CrossFit gym for quite a few years. So in the year 2017, I didn't want to own it anymore. The gym business is a very interesting business, and I felt that CrossFit was, changing a bit. And I wanted to stay active. And my youngest son was a gamer. I wanted to get him out of the house. He was a brainiac, and I thought, fuck, I love jujitsu. I love the way it looks. I love the concept of jujitsu. So I want to try a class, and if I like it, I'm going to bring my son with me, and maybe this is something that we can do together. And sure enough, I mean, I looked up on the web, and my old professor, is still a very good friend of mine, and I still go to classes from time to time, but I moved, so it's not as convenient anymore. His name is Marcio Nunes in Burlington. Yeah. He's got a direct lineage to the Gracies. So this guy is a savage. And he was given lessons out of Radix Performance in Oakville. My buddy Dan there owns a gym, and phenomenal gym. So I started to take lessons with him. But there were only 3 of us in a purple belt. It was carnage. Aaron, I can't tell you. I look at videos of what we used to do when we first started. It was just bones and carcasses colliding with each other. I don't know how we made it.
That's like me and Aaron's first 2 years of jiu-jitsu. It's just like every class is a train wreck.
Oh my God, it was a train wreck. I still remember, when I first started doing jiu-jitsu, I was still pretty strong, and I was rolling with my buddy Derek, and he's a compact 145 pounds, and he had me on an armbar, and I remember I curled him up, and I was kind of Donkey Kong him on the ground, and the professor was like, "Stop! What are you doing?" It's like, "Wow, what did I do?" He said, "No, man, you can hurt somebody that way." But that's how it started.
The streets in Chile. That's how we do it.
You're having flashbacks to the mean streets of Santiago, Chile.
I twitched in the moment that happened, right? But my professor is about 160 pounds, and at the time I was about 210 pounds, and I had nothing on him. It was one of the biggest exercises on humility. And I was hooked, man, on the spot. I said to myself, I want this. I need this in my life. And, and perhaps this is going to sound maybe, childish to you guys, but when you achieve any certain level of mild success on anything, whether it's in business or life in general, and you have people that work for you, it's very difficult to stay humble. And whether you have that, ability to be humble or not, you don't think, because everybody says, yes, everybody does what you tell them to do. And I needed to find something that would ground me, that would bring me right down to nothing. You are just a normal person. People can beat the living shit out of you because they don't care who you are. They don't care the title that you have. They don't care where you live. They don't care about anything. On the mat, there are no lies, and there was something so cathartic for me doing jiu-jitsu. I could take all my frustrations and aggressions and all my, crazy desperation, because I don't do subtle very well. Maybe it's the Spaniard thing, who knows? But, because of where I came from, we never knew where the next meal was coming from. And I've always lived my life ferociously. Like I need to devour my days because I never know when my time is going to come. And that's the way that you live your life in dangerous areas. I mean, when I was having a sales meeting a little while ago, and one of my salespeople were complaining that they were having a tough life, and they just, they were venting, right? So I said, I want you to think about this for a second. For the last, decade or so, Canada has been chosen to be, if not one of the best countries on the planet. And in Canada, Ontario is arguably the best province. And in Ontario, you have Oakville, which is like probably the best city in Ontario. So you are in the best country, in the best province, in the best city on the planet. Like, we won the genetic lottery by being here. And you have a problem? Like, you have a tough life? Like, come on. I feel that there is so much perspective that lacks. And jiu-jitsu just takes all that away from me. Jiu-jitsu take that, I've always felt this, that I have an asshole trapped inside of me that I have to keep under control. No, seriously, man, I have to keep that under control. And Jiu-jitsu was the most cathartic thing that I have found in my life. I think that I don't know if I would have been able to make it over the last 4 or 5 years if it wasn't for Jiu-jitsu being a euphemism for life. You know, Jiu-jitsu now is the most difficult thing that I do. Before it was a marriage, before it was my job, before it's my relationship with my children, and then that becomes a drag. Like, fuck, I don't want to go to work. That's the toughest thing I do. Not anymore. Now it's Jiu-jitsu. So now I can go to Jiu-jitsu, get out of there and say, that was the toughest thing that I've done today. And I can embrace the world with a clean set of eyes. And in my world, I wish that everybody would try it. Everybody should go and enroll once in a while and get turned into a pretzel by a 130-pound purple belt that you don't know how to pin down. But you see, the only thing I wish about jiu-jitsu is that I would have found it a little bit younger. I was 46 when I found it. I'm 49 now, and so my journey has been almost 4 years now. And fuck, man, I wouldn't change this for a bit, for anything. Nothing. I would give that up.
I think that's a big thing with jiu-jitsu is it checks your ego, like you named your ego, but it basically checks like, hey, it doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, if you live in the mean streets of Oakville, Ontario, Canada, or on a beach, like you're all the same when you step on the mats.
It was Cron Gracie that said once that, he never made pass judgment on someone until he rolled with them, because the mat can tell you what's inside. And I do find that I can get to know people better when I roll with them. And, it's such an interesting thing because you see, and I know that I'm going to get into stuff that maybe you guys don't talk about here very often. I don't know. But when you suffer from the PTSD of growing up in a dictatorship, because I grew up in Chile during the Pinochet years, I mean, people would be killed outside of our houses and we would see it. So when you grow up with that sort of unsafe view of the world, and you think that everything out there is unsafe, when you put yourself in a position of not safety on purpose, then those are the people that become your best friends, because those are the only ones that won't hurt you. They can, but they won't. And some of the best friends that I've made over the last few years have come from jiu-jitsu, man. Honestly, there are so many things that I can say to the world, in this podcast, that is invaluable, that I learned on the mat with these guys that are trying to kill you 5 minutes at a time,
Yeah, and it's like you said, like it doesn't allow you time to think about anything else other than that moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that particular 5 minutes is you and another individual working towards positioning and control and basically trying to establish one another's will against each other. And that's all you can really focus on. And that's the dance. And you can't think about your job. You can't think about other bullshit throughout the day. And it really makes you think about, okay, what are you going to do in this moment only? And that's it. There's no time for anything else.
No, you don't. The only thing that compares to it in a completely different way is riding a motorcycle. And I can tell you why. Because if you are not fully engaged on the experience, if you're not fully engaged on the moment, and you become distracted on a motorcycle, you die.
Yeah.
And in jiu-jitsu, although that's never really, a question, nothing is going to happen to you. You essentially have to say, yes, if I don't tap, you'll kill me or you will break something. Mm-hmm. And you have to be present. And this whole notion of, we have been conditioned, guys, to not be here. We are always, when you're a kid, they prepare you to go into JK, then to SK, then to elementary school, then you're preparing to go to high school. And then in every stage of our lives, we are preparing to be somewhere else. And in the process, we miss the absolute most important thing that we have, which is this. When they say that all we have is now, there is no bigger truth that is ever been spoken. And jiu-jitsu allows me to be there, to be present, to understand. And when I have this other person that has an understanding with me, that we are literally going to try to kill each other, but not, but yes, but no. And we need to understand the language. And when you know a few words at the beginning, when you're a white belt and you only know how to say hi, and the other person says hi, and you respond with another move, and then they say, "Hey, how's it going now?" Blah blah blah. It's like, oh my God, I don't know what to answer to that, man. Jesus, and that humility aspect of the exchange opens the door to get to know people in such a different way, but also to get to know yourself. Like I've learned more about myself through jiu-jitsu than I have learned over all the rest of the years of my life. I know what gets me frustrated. I know what makes me insecure. I know what scares me. And there are so many things that jiu-jitsu teaches you that is virtually impossible to explain unless you experience it. And I know that you guys do a really good job explaining those things. And I wish that, I was eloquent enough to explain to the world what jiu-jitsu does or has done for me in this case.
Yeah.
No, I think you've done like a really good job of that, actually. Like it's the struggle and like learning words, and eventually you're trying to have a conversation with somebody. Or like if you're ever watching Aaron roll, I don't know what a spazzing toe hold translates.
I don't do it to blue belts and lower. I don't do it to blue belts.
You don't do it to blue belts and below.
No.
Usually when Aaron gets frustrated and there's like a conversation going on, he'll just start ripping at my feet. That's usually what happens when me and Aaron start training. He gets frustrated. He can't in the proverbial BJJ talk. He gets angry and starts ripping at stuff. True
do you
story.
Train at Evo?
I do not train at Evo, but me and Aaron are we've been acquaintances at a gym that we do not speak of, that we've partnered and ran a program there. We don't talk about that gym here on this podcast.
I was fortunate enough that until I moved up here, I had a house that was big enough to have a dojo. So we have a fight club. So the guys would come to my house every Sunday morning. 4 or 5 guys, and we go at it for 3 or 4, 3.5 hours. We crank some tunes, and we just go. At the end of the 3 hours, there was nothing left of us. But jiu-jitsu is a funny thing, because if you're going to getting belt, you need to not go to jiu-jitsu, because that is a big source of anxiety. In the moment that you get caught up in the progression and the stripes and the belt, especially for business people, Aaron, jiu-jitsu is like the absolute worst, man, because business it's got KPIs,
Yeah, performance indicators, and they're all like, oh, how am I doing? Am I doing good? Am I doing bad? Oh, I didn't get a stripe this month. I don't know if I'm doing well. What am I missing? What is that guy getting that I'm not getting? Why is he moving forward? Like, what the fuck?
That's it. I quit. This guy got promoted. I think the biggest source of anxiety is gradings. It's just like, oh, this guy got graded and I didn't. Fuck this. I quit. It's just like throwing the Monopoly board at the end. Like, I'm done.
It is. Like, and not to cut you off or anything like that.
No, go ahead.
It's like, that's really what it is. And I think, like, especially like even for myself, right? I remember like when I was turning like blue belt, like purple belt was the belt I wanted. Like that was like going from that blue belt to purple belt. That was like, okay, I want my purple belt. I've worked. And then there was a point where I thought I was going to move from blue belt to purple belt. And they're like, nope, he's competing. He hasn't won a tournament yet. He needs to win a tournament at blue belt, and then we'll promote him to purple, right? I was like, fine. I fucking worked like a dog. And I'm like, I'm going to beat the shit out of everybody. I'm going to win my tournament, and I'm going to get promoted in the next one, right? I'm like, okay, cool. Work my ass off. Finally get to where I think I win my tournament. I'm like, all right, next grading, boom, purple belt's coming, right? And there's all these other guys that I trained with at different schools, and I'm like, I'm better than you, I'm better than you, I'm better than you. Like I'm sizing people up, right? And then it was like, okay, we come to grading time. I'm like, Aaron, stand up. I'm like, all right, here we fucking go. Purple belt time. Right. Stand up. And then these other guys all stand, and I'm like, this is my moment, right? I'm like, these other guys stand up. I'm like, motherfuckers. These guys are getting purple belts, and then I'm standing right there. I'm like, I get my purple belt first, and then they get purple belts. I'm like, this is bullshit. I was so mad. I was so mad. And then it was like that at that point, then I was like, you know what? It doesn't matter. because they're still wearing purple belts, and I'm still gonna beat the shit out of them.
It doesn't matter. I think to this day, or before Aaron got his official promotion to black belt, I was getting a lot of angry texts from Aaron when people were getting promoted. He's like, this fucking guy, I beat him at blue belt, and then he got his black belt yesterday. I hate this guy. Fuck this guy. And then it's like 2 weeks later, somebody else gets their black belt. It's like the same text. It's like, fuck this guy. I beat him at fucking purple belt. I think he sucks. He's black belt. I'm still a fucking brown belt. This is bullshit. I'm like Aaron, listen.
Prick.
I'm like Aaron. At the end of the day, you are where you are right now. I am where I am. I'm not a black belt. There's a lot of people that are like, why is Mike not a black belt? I'm like, I don't know. Go talk to my instructors. Until then, I'm just trying to get better. I don't care. Maybe I'll sandbag and win a World Masters at Masters 7.
There you maybe go. Let's show your shirt.
Maybe I'll, yeah. Did you know, Greg, I competed at Worlds?
You did?
I'm just flexing, yeah. I'm kind of a big deal. I got I'm an adult quarterfinalist at purple belt.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
That doesn't mean a damn thing. I don't think I made any money off that, but I digress.
I went down the rabbit hole hard. My first year, honestly, man, I was going to class 4 times a week. I was taking two privates per week, and I was going for it. The first year I did 4 tournaments, and at the end of the first year, I was doing really well. I had 2 stripes on my white belt. Yeah, it's like it's a big deal, man. It's a big fucking deal when you first start. I heard this once that jiu-jitsu is one of the only martial arts that have high level 4-stripe white belt can mess you up, and this is not.
Yeah, it's true.
Yep, absolutely.
It is true. So I was competing in an in-house tournament, and I won my division, and then I was competing in absolute. So I was competing with brown belts and purple belts, and by luck, I beat one of my good buddies. He's a purple belt, and I had to fight a young guy. He was 25 years old, another purple belt. And on a takedown, I blew my knee. Like, I kid you not, my ACL, MCL, PCL, gone. Like, gone. Everybody was like, oh. So I still won the silver. So I got I got the hardware, but I fucked up my knee. So I thought, okay, I'm not going to be able to do this anymore. But, I have been very lucky in my life, guys, because I have met some really cool people. So when my buddy heard that I was injured, he put me in contact with Paul Marks. I don't know if you guys know Paul Marks. He's the orthopedic surgeon of the Raptors. So I went to see him.
I've heard the name. Yeah,
I went to see him.
And out of Sunnybrook, and he talked to me and he says, "Are you gonna compete again?" So I said, "Fuck yeah." So he said, "All right, just because you're gonna compete again, I'm gonna fix you up." So he did a transplant. He put bone transplant from a cadaver. So my entire knee was reconstructed. He sent me home without crutches. I was on the mat 3 months later. Wow. So the following year, I had another 5 tournaments. I won them all, and I got my blue belt after that. And I have been a blue belt for the last 2 years or so. But I mean, COVID in between has been tough. So, I have 2 stripes on my blue, and, I stopped chasing it because it was enough to drive me crazy, right? So now I just go, I roll. I'm still rolling 3 or 4 times a week. And I try to get as much mat time as I can, but it's fascinating what happens to you when you stop chasing the belt. And I was driving myself crazy. Like, I can beat that asshole. I can beat that asshole. It's like, it doesn't stop.
You sound like you're turning into Aaron now.
No, I'm not about that life anymore.
That guy's a purple belt. Screw that guy.
I'm humbled now. I'm good.
Now you got your black belt. You can finally shut up about it.
I'm quiet.
Oh, Aaron and I have rolled a couple of times. I have been humbled by Aaron.
Greg's a beast, though.
Watch the toe holds. Watch the toe holds.
Like I said, I won't do that to Greg. But
I have
rules and standards. Rules and standards on like progression levels. So like purple belt and down, I don't do it. Brown belt and up, fair game.
No,
Just
listen.
stand us in
I
class.
always tell everybody, just do whatever you want, man. If it's up to me to tap,
Yeah.
it's up to me to tap. But when I met Tom, the
Mhm.
our professor at the school, I met him as a client. He reached out to me on Facebook and said, "Hey, Greg, I hear that you're in the car business, so you need to help me out." So I helped him out, and we started to talk. And then he invited me. And he is such a genuine, open guy. So just come and hang out. So I
Mhm.
started to, drop by and hang out, and we became friends. So that's how it all started with Tom. But the it's such an interesting the dichotomy that you have of styles between schools.
Oh yeah.
Whatever we were training in the other school is the complete opposite of what I do here. So now you can complement the techniques that we use from the two sides. So now when I go back to my old school, it's like, hey, where did that come from?
Oh yeah, no, and you know what? Like, and that's the fascinating thing, especially with like schools in Ontario, because like if you were to like look at like Gringos Club, or if you were to look at like, and this is out in the East End, if you were to go central, like Professor Marco Costa, like Body of Four, or even if you're going to go like Dan Maroney at Gracie Woodbridge, where Mike is, and then obviously at Evo with Toma and Dave and their dynamics, and then obviously with the other Castle BJJ, like
Yep.
the styles are all over the place, right? So like you're never going to find a school that's going to emulate the same as another one. Obviously, the language of jiu-jitsu is still the same, but the styles on how they train are completely different. And that's what makes it amazing, because like, and that's why we always on this show we promote individuals going to other schools and trying different people and trying different schools and roll with as many people as you can safely, and because that's how you're going to get better. The more people, because again, you fall into patterns of rolling with the same people all the time at your own
You become
academy.
predictable.
Become predictable. You know what this person's going to do. If I end up on my back, I can rest for a minute and then move to another position. But if you do that at another academy, that person's been trained to not allow that to happen, and they're going to be doing X, Y, Z, and you're going to have to make decisions faster or whatever, right? So it's always important for people to cross train, and the beautiful thing is having a professor that allows you to go do that, and that's the
If
one thing.
that's a bone to pick that I have with jujitsu. And I know that this is when I make it to the airways, but I don't care. If there was one thing that I could change about jujitsu, it would be how tribal schools are.
Mhm.
They get so caught up in the actual group that this is our school and we need to protect it at all costs. You can't go anywhere else, and everybody gets bent out of shape with this. It's like, whoa, stop. If I'm in a position that I want to be a member of 3 different schools, guess what? I'm paying for the membership. I'm going there for a service. I'm going there for the vibe. Why are you bothered by this? You see, right now I'm attending 3 schools, and the reason why I do this is because I don't have a choice. So when I'm at the office, I can go to my old school and roll at lunchtime, and then I can go to class at Evo. But where I live up here in Georgina, there is an awesome school that is called Cavallo BJJ up in Keswick. And
Okay.
my buddy Mark and Andrew, they own it up here, and they're so welcoming. So I will go to wherever school I happen to be closest to at that particular point. But it's no slight against any other school, but people get so hurt by this.
Yeah.
And do you find that happens with a lot of schools out there?
It does, and I think honestly, I saw that a lot more like years ago. I think that culture is slowly starting to change. I think you're seeing a lot more gyms that are maybe like affiliation free, or I think there was when I was like coming up, there was a lot of like open mats as well, and like I had this conversation with Aaron a lot of times. Like there was open mats at like, let's say, like Gringo's gym, like in one area, but then I think as things kind of went along, I think maybe some places maybe got a little more territorial, or they wanted to keep things a little more in house, or wanted to keep like their guys like training with their guys, and these guys over here are only going to train with them. Which like I think for when it comes to like, hey, if there's like a big tournament coming, okay, that's one thing. But like I think when it's just overall development of the overall scene, and I think a lot of people's goals are changing as well. So there's a lot of people going to compete internationally, and I think honestly the best way of doing it is you need to train with a variety of different people, and most of the time it's people probably outside of like your home school a lot of times.
But look, I mean, if the whole part of the journey of jiu-jitsu is just being a student, every school is going to have something different to teach you.
Yep.
Like, why wouldn't you want to encourage your students to learn a variety of different things? And if they come back to you, that means that it means that they were meant to be yours in the first place.
Yeah.
The only time that we become insecure is when we think that we may lose them. But that's not a reflection on them; it's a reflection on you.
Yes,
Oh,
I
yeah.
agree with that.
Yeah, no, 100%. And then we've talked with like other instructors and obviously other owners, and like and they all come to the same whole thing. It's like if you run a good program, you run a good student base and whatever, your student will come back to you. If you it's when you're not providing the service and skill set that you or evolving the atmosphere, that's when students will leave you. And then again, it's the instructors who say, oh, that student's a creance or whatever, right? So like it's important to allow your student. I think the one thing is communication too, though. Like, because let's just say on a grading standpoint, right? Like, who's actually grading this individual?
Yeah, and I can see
that's where it can get a little.
That's where it gets wacky. a little hazy. But like at the end of the day, I think it just comes down to communication. If you're talking to who is involved, and you're like, hey, I'm gonna go train here when I'm in this area, but like this is kind of my home base of where I'm training at. And if as long as that's communicated, I don't have an issue with that. There's been examples of like, in me and Aaron's program, we've had people like, I've had, 45-year-old grown men, business people that are like, hey, like, is it okay if I go to this seminar? It's like, you're a 45-year-old man. Like me and Aaron aren't going to tell you like how to live your life. You want to go train here, go train.
Go learn it and then bring it back.
Like, teach it to us.
Yeah, exactly.
But don't you think that, I mean, if you're a professor from school and you have a student that pops up from time to time and you see them that they're performing at a higher level than they are representing on their belt, don't the professors have somewhat of a moral obligation to say, you shouldn't be here, you should be somewhere else, like in your grading? Or that's not the way that it's looked at? And remember that I'm new at this, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, don't get in trouble. So it's like I would
suck.
Say
leave your chip.
I would say yes, but I also kind of like look. Let's say the individual's training at, let's say, 2 different places. I'm gonna throw it out there, right? But let's say he spends his majority at one club. I would think it'd be kind of on the person where he's spending the most majority at that time at that club to kind of take the ownership and be like, okay, I'm gonna grade this individual and put him higher, but maybe I'll have if I know he's training at another facility, I might as well just do like a quick little text. I'm like, hey, we need to put another stripe on Joe's belt. Like, do you want to do it or do you want me to do it? Right? Like, because I'm doing it. Or like if one person has more seniority over the other, so let's just say your school, you're training with a brown belt, for example, but the other school where you go to, the majority is a black belt, then I would say it's the black belt's responsibility to grade you, not the brown belt.
That's interesting. Now, I'm still learning as I go. But like I said to you before, I gave up in chasing. I gave up chasing the progression. Now I just want to enjoy myself when I go to the school, man. And I ever since I took the weight off my shoulders of chasing the next grading is when I started to really enjoy jiu-jitsu in the way that I believe it was meant to be enjoyed. Because now it doesn't matter, man. I train with beasts no matter where I go. I mean, at Evo, Jesus Christ, man, there are some beasts in that place. And, the fact that I'm almost 50 and I can still roll with a 25-year-old, that's a good thing, man. I don't know how old are you?
I'm 38 now.
Not 25.
No, I'm 39. Shit, I'm 39. I almost lied. I'm 39 now, so I'm almost at the 40 range.
You're getting up there, man. But jiu-jitsu is one of the only sports that I can still compete with guys that are half my age and still somewhat hold my own. And I love that, man. And my kids do it with me. COVID
that's important.
Yeah, COVID was tough because it kept a lot of people away. I never stopped.
No, and you know what? Like, it was kind of obviously tough for like me and Mike, because like we had the kids at home, and like we got young boys, so we can only so much we can do with like a 5-year-old, right? And then it was just like you can only do so much.
Did you see Aaron's systematic BJJ Fanatics DVD with him like rock bottoming Connor for like?
I did see that. Yeah. That was actually pretty funny. I saw the episodes.
There you go. Yeah, but like I'll say one thing, whereas like when you look at like BJJ in general, like especially like progression, or like even like talking, like even like when you're rolling with people, and this is one thing that Professor Shaw always told me, whereas like if you can end a match or finish your submission, ending like a joke, because we like talk like BJJ is like a conversation. Yep. If you're able to make a submission happen where it happens so naturally and the person laughs because it was so silly that they fell into that submission, or they fell into that choke, or a move just sounded so stupid and they ended up there, then you've learned jiu-jitsu, because you've been able to make it a joke rather than an actual fight. So it's like, if you're able to communicate it that way, it's like, okay, you figured it out.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it, because when you get tapped, it's emasculated, man. It's like, oh, dude, man, how did I get myself into this?
Yeah, but it's even better when it's like you laugh about it, because that's like, shit, that actually just happened.
And it's amazing how quickly it can sneak up on you. And I find that as I get older, I have patience, something that I didn't have when I was younger. You first get into the sport and you go like, and like I said before, the carcasses are just collapsing onto each other. Now I seem to, whether I'm getting lazy because I'm older now, or not, but I think that patience is something that I didn't have before, and it's helping me quite a bit on my progression, because my game is different, right?
Oh, absolutely, right.
Just like when I hurt my knee, my whole game changed. Like, before it was just attack from the top, and now I'm just in the bottom playing half guard. And I've always been a stickler about practicing one technique for a very, very, very long time. Like, I've been practicing one thing for about 1.5 years now, to the point that the guys that I'm trying it on are becoming so good at defending it that I have to be so much better to put it on them, because they know what's coming. Mm-hmm. So, it's something that I've always done. Even when I was in karate in Chile, they would put us through one technique for like 1 year, 1.5 years. You would get tired of it, but then it just becomes second nature. The only downside to that is that you don't learn a lot of stuff,
But you get good at that one technique, and that becomes
pretty deadly if you can get it on somebody who's not expecting it.
Yeah, especially in tournaments. Yeah. Especially tournaments are such a different thing, and it's a lot of young guys and a lot of new practitioners. I feel that they're reluctant to do it, and because they get anxious, they get nervous about getting hurt and whatnot. And I couldn't emphasize enough to everybody that's listening to the podcast here how much you learn at a tournament instead of just going to class.
Yeah,
it's a whole different experience, man. It's addictive.
Yeah, it's a completely different experience. So, but like when you kind of look at it, like as we kind of start to wrap up today, like what's kind of like the next step for you, whether it being through jiu-jitsu, obviously the show, which has still been so really successful, like obviously, how are you going to incorporate these daily lessons into your life and moving forward?
Do you really want to know, Aaron? I'll tell you. If I don't see myself working for too much longer. And I really want to become proficient enough to partner up with somebody and probably open a jiu-jitsu school someplace, just to retire doing that. Nice. Do it all day, every day, and just go on the mats and wipe the mat, and take piano lessons.
I love
music. Yeah, man, I love music. So I play the guitar. I've recorded an album already. I know it sounds crazy, but it's just for me, so no one will ever hear any of this.
This is the unreleased
Carrasco.
I use the guitar to drown out the way that I killed.
The Greg Carrasco mixtape tour coming soon to your dojo.
No. I think that I will continue with the show, even if I stop working in a few years. I will continue with the show. Working in the car industry, at Oakville Nissan and Oakville Infiniti, not 401. That was a long time.
There you go. There you go.
I'm the VP of operations there for the last few years, and every few years I go to new stores that are struggling, and I go in and I restructure, and then we put them back. We heal them back into profitability. I've really enjoyed doing that. It's hard, to move and change jobs and change people's lives, because during the restructure you need to let go of people, hire people. So it's tough. That's my job, but my work is the radio show. I feel that that's the way that I've been giving back to the community for the last 13 years. And there's only one moral compass that I have on the radio show, and that is, if my mom was asking this question on the show that a caller is asking me right now, what would I tell my mom, knowing all that I know? Mm-hmm. And as simple as that may sound, you will never steer your mother wrong. And that has kept me on the right side of the audience for all these years, because, sometimes you need to give your mom some tough love. Like, what are you doing? In the car business, man, people, look, in one day, Aaron, I will go through more car transactions than most people go in their lifetime, but they know better. They know better. They will tell me exactly what they need to do because they just know better. And, do you find that, Mike, in jiu-jitsu, that people come in and they will tell you what to do, even though you're a high rank in, another belt? No, right?
Maybe not so much in jiu-jitsu, but like, I think me and Aaron have a lot of experience in the fitness industry. And and a lot of times people will come in and be like, yeah, so like, I need to lose weight. I'm just going to do like this, this, and this. I got this. Like, I think me and Aaron have heard this a lot of times, and more often than not, a lot of times they find out maybe sometimes it's a lot harder than they have anticipated.
And, you just remember this, and I'll leave you with a couple of thoughts in the car industry, because you guys can teach me everything about jiu-jitsu. When it comes to the car business, I'm up there when it comes to knowledge. I'm a student of the car industry, and everything that you think is the right thing to do is because you've been conditioned to think so. Let me give you an example. If leasing was good for you, manufacturers wouldn't let you do it. Mm-hmm. You'd be amazed as to how many people have fallen into that trap. The only job that the car manufacturer has is like politicians, to give you exactly what you need in order for you to come back the soonest possible. The sooner the better. The money's in the turn. So a lot of the things that you've been conditioned to believe about the car industry is only for one reason: to take as much money from you as the industry can take from you. But you shouldn't. You shouldn't do it. You're paying attention there, Aaron. I see you.
Yeah, I know. I used to be in the car industry too. That's why.
Aaron's like, should I lease a car? Not lease a car? I'm
What's going on? Purposes.
So I actually have, like, my schooling is originally from Centennial College for auto mechanics, and I worked as a mechanic for like 5 years. Then I worked for Part Source, like as a commercial sales manager for them for about 5 years, and then I ran a small service garage for Goodyear.
Look at you, man!
7 years. So like, I've been in the industry for like almost 12, 13 years, and then I quit the car industry to go in the fitness industry. So I'm like, I'm listening to you talking. I'm like, I know all this stuff.
You know exactly what I'm talking about.
You know exactly what you're talking about.
And and people don't. Mike, it's amazing how many people, they fall for what they've been told by their dad, their uncle, and anybody, uncle or anybody else, and they don't listen to people that are trying to help them out. And but I think that's one of the reasons why this show and what I do has lasted for as long as it has, because I'm not a car person, and when you help somebody genuinely, they'll come back to talk to you. They literally will come back. I have a client that I sold a car 26 years ago. I have sold them over 12 cars for the last 2.5 decades. It doesn't matter where I go, they just follow me. They just say, whatever Hugh said is what we'll do, because they've never been steered wrong. And, it's one of the greatest compliments that I have. But guys, it's been amazing. This has been amazing. I hope that this was an interesting conversation for you guys.
Oh, we've had a great time.
Definitely has been.
No, thank you so much for having me. And, I hope that this has the intended effect.
No, absolutely. No, Greg, this has been a great show. We've had an awesome time speaking to you because we've kind of covered a whole bunch of topics, but it's been
Yeah.
great to see your perspective, especially in a totally different industry, but obviously bringing it back to jiu-jitsu like we talk about all the time, and obviously that community-based part. But then again, it's like we talk about being honest and really bringing people together in different ways, and that's kind of like the whole purpose of the whole show too. So that's why we wanted you on the show. So it's been a great day, great time.
Yep.
Been awesome.
It's been awesome.
I'm gonna be plugging the podcast on the show. I mean, people can come and find me at Oakville Nissan and Oakville Infiniti, or they can listen to my show on TSN 1050 on Saturday mornings. And hopefully, I can have you guys join the radio show one of these days, so you can promote the podcast.
That would be great. That would be awesome. We'll
That'd
just
be
tone
awesome.
it down for the with no swearing on the radio.
we'll keep it PG, and then we'll go like me and Aaron have faces for radio anyway, so I think we'll fit in just perfect.
Whenever I feel like swearing, I say, fuck it, let's go and see Aaron and Mike.
Exactly. There we go.
We have to have you on again sometime soon, though.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Fred. Have a great week, guys.
Thanks, Greg.